that's one thing. It's like, man, I would have loved to have social media around when my dad passed in 1999.
Oh.
So, nothing like that. It was like we had the funeral service that overflowed out into the parking lot at Zion Lutheran Church, which isn't a small sanctuary by any means. And it was like the most packed thing ever, right? And it was just an amazing experience. And it was kind of one of those like, I hope he's seeing all of the impact and people flying in from all walks of life that he had dealt with over the years.
Right.
And then when you see, with Jerry passing and you just see all the comments from the wrestlers he coached to the kids that he taught, the other sports that he was involved with, it just, the impact was so far and so wide, right? And just tons of amazing stuff, right? Just like, what an inspiration, right? What a great dude. I seriously, on multiple ones, I was just like, he was an amazing human. Like, so privileged to have known the guy and be part of the way he thought, the way he acted, the way he treated other people. And especially in today's age, it's very different than how a lot of people carry and conduct themselves. So.
This is the Buffalo Community Podcast, all about the greatest small town in the USA, the people in it, and how it all works together. Here are your hosts, Tyler Reiss and Mark Benzer.
All right. Episode number 78 of the Buffalo Community Podcast. I got a fun one. It's somebody I've been wanting to have in here for quite a while. And
Your mistake. Sounds good.
And now you're here. So we have with us a guy who has many talents and many hats and is very familiar with Buffalo, Aaron Weiche, class of 1992. I hope that's okay to share.
Yeah.
Still young.
When you said episode 78, I thought, did I graduate in 78? I mean,
No. Not that old.
Almost born then, but
right.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you for coming in.
Happy to be here.
We're not really sure where this conversation is going to go, but we're just going to push play and see what happens.
There you go. If there ends up becoming just one subject out of this, that'll probably be a victory. So I think we'll probably cover way more than anybody wants to listen to, but sounds great.
Perfect.
Yeah, but if we get to like number 3 or 4, I mean, they're hooked. They're going to hear 7 and 8 for sure.
I might give you guys a couple of episodes, right? Like you're going to take a few weeks off and hit the beach. So.
We might just head out.
Yeah.
You can just, So, no, cool. I guess one of the things I want to talk about is kind of your business mind, the business side of what you do and where your talents are and some of the successes and things you've learned there. But Leadferno is your business.
Yep.
And what is it? And
so Leadferno is my latest venture, and it is really designed to help businesses communicate with their customers using text messaging and other messaging services like Facebook Messenger. Google My Business, which you see in your search results when you look up a business, they've actually started to roll out a chat messaging system as well.
Sure.
So what we want to do is, one, empower a business to use text messaging, just not on their employee's phone from the employee's number, where then they don't have control. That employee leads all the conversations, all the contacts, all of those things are gone. So making it a little bit more secure. And then really just taking the mindset that, this is the evolving way that people want to communicate. It's the way we already communicate with our friends and family and interests. I mean, I don't know, how many emails do we actually send to the people that we want to communicate with anymore? So, it's just kind of wrapping that up and then allowing those conversations to start from the website. So when someone is doing that research process on who's the roofer I should work with or who should I talk to about windows or a mechanic, anything else,
go to the Buffalo Community Post.
There you go.
And say,
yes,
I'm looking for a reputable real estate agent.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
And then buckle up.
Yeah. You're going to have all the choices you could get in the world, right? Like
I see that all the time. It's awesome when you get tagged in and everything. I always think real estate agents aren't hard to find.
Yes.
I think you're lonely if you're asking on a Buffalo or any community post about who to use for a real estate agent.
Yep.
People love recommending them.
Yep.
But I think you're just lonely.
Yeah.
But you want to see your notification.
You're asking.
But really the interesting things that it probably comes down to is that person's perception of the refer, right? Like, do I know that refer, whatever else? Or you get into quantity, right? Like if there's 5 Tylers, 10 Tylers, 10 Marks, then you start to be like, okay, that's I definitely need to
somebody should
include
call.
that in mind because there's 30 that were mentioned once,
Sure.
but these others really get heaped on. So there's some really interesting behavior things that go on with that, right? Like I usually I'm one of those like, all right, let's make the popcorn and sit back and watch what happens,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And the way social media's evolved, like not only a couple years ago, you'd just only get the kind things. Now you get people on there, whatever you do, avoid so-and-so, right?
Yeah.
And it's somebody who's still scorned off that experience. And they're like, any chance I get, I'm telling the world not
Right.
to use that. And that just all gets back to like, man, you really have to think long and hard today about how you treat your customers because the customer's voice has so much amplification on the internet that they can put you through, a lot of sleepless nights if you do somebody wrong. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So this is not your first business venture, but correct me if I'm wrong, like a lot of your ventures have been around like the customer experience and customer service type stuff, right?
Yep, especially like the last two software companies. So, if we like want to back all the way up, I always say, stroke of luck and just things working out the right way that this whole internet thing happened as I was like launching my career, right? So
Glad it wasn't a fad.
yes, absolutely. I have great stories about people who told me it was a fad, right? Like pitching a bank on having a website and internet banking and them telling me no one will ever do their banking online, right? It's like, guess what? I no longer walk into a bank ever.
Right.
Yeah.
So, early 2000s it was when those took place. But late 90s, my first step into entrepreneurship is I started a sports tour company, right? So would package together tickets to the Vikings game and coach bus down to Chicago and 2 nights hotel, things like that for NASCAR, football. And one of the ways to market it was like, I should have a web page, right? This is late 90s.
On the World Wide Web.
Yes, absolutely, right? Like, so then all you had to do is if you built one page, but it was like when I was running print and newspaper ads in like the Vikings Update newspaper and things like that, to have a website that they could go to, and if they're interested, then email you, like, that felt like, this is a great marketing advantage, right? So self-taught myself how to build a web page, and that just led to a lot of other, talk about community things, right? I owe a lot to the Buffalo community business owners in town then saying, will you build a website for me, right? So plenty of real estate agents in town. Al built one of his first websites. Buff and Glow, accountants in town, so many different things. And that was my first start into like technology and marketing where I was just like, okay, this is awesome. I'm a digital woodworker, right? Like I liked to create things, and that was just a fabulous medium to start creating.
Now, in a person as in the next generation, the millennial generation, you didn't have YouTube or Google to say how to build a website.
No, books, right, Tyler? It was books.
Well, I don't know what those are. If ever we're going to learn something today.
Had a library of things, and then be like, okay, right? You're reading about code out of a book and then writing it on the screen, right? Like, there was help forums and things like that, but you'd go to Barnes and Noble and buy, these almanac things of how to write code. And when you think
Coding
now
for
of
dummies.
and you think about like how fast things evolve now, like by the time it hits print, it's so out of date in the world of tech. Like I always say one of my favorite sayings is I go to bed smart and I wake up stupid, because that's how fast the industry moves.
Sure.
And I really used to love it. I like it a little bit less now as I get older, where it's like, I don't want to have to learn so much all the time. But that's also what's like kept me interested in the field for so long. So,
would you say that there was a particular experience or something that kind of got you on this customer experience, of the last couple, that there's like, this is a pain point and I think I have a solution for it? Or is it?
No, I definitely think there's a few different elements to it. One is in building so many websites for businesses, and you would see how they interact, because you'd be helping them set up email and their website forms, and you'd see things that come in. Like, you just kind of get to witness communication at scale to some extent. And then you're just constantly talking with business owners. So you're hearing their pain points and what they want and what they're looking for and all those types of things. And as the web started to evolve and we started to see more of these, the customer having such a big voice in online reviews and Facebook recommendations and things like that, it was pretty easy to see 7-8 years ago, kind of this wave starting for what that was. And to me, it just really looked at like that's such a business staple, what your customers think about you, right? And that's why I was just super drawn to that, because I feel like it's a massively untapped area. Because for most businesses, you know, even now, I think a lot of business struggle. What they want, they're like, yes, I want this 5-star Google review. Please leave me a 5-star Google review. But really the most powerful thing is like, what does this customer think? And what are they going to say about me when it's to the person sitting next to them at the youth soccer game, the person that they run into in town when they're hanging out, having beers with friends on Friday night? Like, that's the true power, is like this word of mouth marketing. And it ends up in like this great structured and formatted way in Google reviews. But for every like one Google review you probably have 10, 15, 20 other customers that have something to say about you, good or bad. And do you have any idea what they're going to say with it? So yeah, my product prior to Leadferno was all about capturing as much of that customer's opinion in a structured way where you could start to compile it and see like, okay, do people love our process? Are we good at communicating? What can we improve? Where do we do great that we should use that in our marketing? Like, our customers say this. Things like that. So to me, it was this really great fire hose of information that most businesses, that they're still not paying attention to. But more and more are getting there, right?
Yeah.
They're realizing the power of it.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
So with this text messaging, I don't even know the stats, but like 12% of emails are going to get read all the way through, and that's probably high. But like 98% of text messages get read.
Yes, yeah,
they open.
Yes, the open rate is 98% average for email, especially when you get into the marketing emails, is like sub 20%. And I think the number somewhere around like 90% of texts are read in the first 5 minutes that they're received. Right, so it's this. Lower traffic email inbox really that's in a faster loop, and it's more abbreviated, right? It's like, when's the last time that you got a text message that was like 6 paragraphs, right? That just doesn't happen. No. So it's like, there's a lot of great things just built into the velocity of the conversations. People are more to the point. It's more instant. Plus the app on our phone is going to like let us know when it's there, right? Like, having that on in your email is super annoying, right? If you're just receiving these alerts in a snippet of your emails, you probably shut it off because you've signed up for 60 different newsletters and promos and specials. It's
because you wanted 10% off.
Yes, exactly. And then you learn to kind of ignore that, or Gmail automatically puts it into the junk folder for you. So
I have a question. Like, somebody's visiting the site. I'm very curious on that. To start that conversation, is it prompted by that customer, or kind of like that Google chat that pops on, like you're surfing on the web and all of a sudden it just pops up? Or I'm assuming there's a consumer that prompts something. Yep.
So what we have is a couple of buttons that are basically floating always on the screen in the lower corner. And we tell people like use text in one of those kind of 2 buttons that's there. So it might say, text us, and above it's a little bubble that says, have questions, just ask. So it's really putting in front of the consumer, like the barrier to start talking to us or to find out what you need to know is super low. It's not evasive. You're not going to make a phone call where you have to press 1 and then 6 and then 8 and then leave a voicemail, right? And wonder like, when are they getting back to me? So it's really, it's really designed for people to feel like, this is easy. I'm going to get an easy alert when this business responds to me, and I'm not wasting my time with a phone call, or I fill out a web form and like, where does that even go? Just a number of things like that. So that's where it starts from. All they have to do is, here's my name and number, and here's what I want to know. And then our system instantly gives a text reply. It says, great, we've received it. Here's when you can expect to hear back from us.
Okay.
And there's 2 different ones, one based on if you're open or you're closed. So you can set easy expectations, and then, you're able to pick it up and start interacting with that customer.
Not that you need to like show me everything here. I'm really fascinated by it, and that was maybe you answered my second question of, is it AI that all of a sudden, based on your response, it's just a kickback of like, okay, great, we've seen this, but it's not like a smart text messaging platform where like, hey, I'm just trying to have a computer conversation with a real person here, but all of a sudden it just prompts you.
Yeah. So our goal is to connect you to a team member that can help you.
Okay.
I personally have yet to have like a great artificial intelligence. AI is, the buzzword in ours, or what's called a chat bot. where it's the kind of experience where I'm like, man, that was awesome, right? Like, it's either one, you kind of know what you want, but you can enter in something so it'll quickly surface it. And it's the same info you could probably find on the website anyway by navigation or search. Or two, it's just for the business to kind of turn it into a warmer lead, right? Like, okay, tell us your name, tell us your email, right? It's a little bit more of almost an interactive form, which is still a better experience than, you know, when you go to a web page and you see, hey, here's 12 things that they want to know before I can ask my question.
Right.
One of them is, you know, your kid's birth date and social security number. It's like, why do I have to give all this up to find out if you'll remodel my bathroom, right?
Yeah,
But as, you know, salespeople, it's like, oh, we want to know so many things so that we can score that lead and then figure out how we want to respond.
Right.
So, yeah, I hope in the future that those will be some of the things we'll explore, or really some, you know, light funneling where we're able to ask a few questions, especially after hours, right? When somebody's, you know, texting Mark at 2 a.m. just because they randomly thought like, oh, my auto insurance policy is going to expire and I want to shop around for who's next. Yeah, if you can capture some of that. So when you hit the office at, you know, 7 a.m.
6:30.
Super early.
Yeah, right.
The next day, like, you have some easy information so you can reach out with more answers than more questions. So I think that will come in our product, but for right now, we just want to make that connection super fast and easy. It's like, don't waste time. Don't leave a voicemail. Don't wonder if they're getting your email. Like,
let's get to the dance right away.
Send off a text and let's get you in contact with that person.
It's so funny. And we do have other things we want to get to. We can kind of geek out here. But it's funny how long it was, like, for sure in my business, it was like you pick up the phone and you call somebody and you set up a face-to-face appointment. That's how we do business.
Yep.
And it was just like, nobody ever stopped. I mean, it's starting to happen now, but it's like, we can't do business the way we necessarily want to do business. We have to do business the way the consumer wants to do business.
Yes.
And it took a really long time, but finally it's, you know, the power of text message is being adopted rapidly.
I mean, let's face it, the pandemic pushed a lot of that too. I mean, when people are like, you know, oh, what would you do different? I'd be like, I would have had this ready before the pandemic, right? Because businesses were shifting. They're like, I need to interact with my customers because they're not coming through my door. Or if I'm a restaurant and they're pulling up, it'd be a lot easier if they could text me, I'm here. And you'll be able to say, great, we're going to run your food out to you. So from that side of things is like, that I think really propelled people and made us as consumers more open to like, this is not just a friends and family channel. This is a get stuff done channel. And so I want to utilize it that way.
Awesome. I could keep talking about this, but
I know. I don't
know if
it's like.
But the benefit for you, Mark, like when you're in industries that are like slower to adopt, is you can see all these great ideas and things happening. And then if you're just, what you need to do is just lead your industry, right? You don't need to lead everyone else that's out there. The cool thing is they're the ones that are changing consumer behavior, right? When somebody's like, oh, I did this all over text message, scheduled this, had this happen. I never even interacted with them and everything was great. And then you'd be like, sweet, you can have that same experience with me, right? And it's like, to me, those are the cool things in technology over time where you just see, there's those that like push the envelope and make things happen. And then others can say, all right, let's take that same process or premise and let's bring it into ours.
Sure.
And it drastically, you know, changes what that looks like in that industry where you look innovative, but you really didn't do anything much different. Like, Domino's built a pizza tracker like 8 years ago, and it's still a fabulous piece of technology, but a mortgage broker could take that and be like, hey, here's your loan, and here's this, it's out of the oven. It's ready for signature. Here's the time. They'd be like, oh, this is awesome. I tracked my mortgage away.
I'm just watching it.
And the mortgage company was like, we got that from ordering pizza, right? So
who says business lunches don't do anything?
Yeah, that's great.
Look into your crystal ball. 10 years. I mean, you're at the beginning of the internet. Let's call you. Not really, but the popular part of the internet. What does it look like in 10 years, 15 years, 20 years?
Yeah, holy cow. I mean, if I knew, holy cow.
Yes.
I mean, I'd already be on the beach and just calling in the bets from the beach.
Good odds on this one.
It's really interesting as we've seen this shift, right? Because like the early stages of the web were such a, all right, you get the self-publishing, you get a collection of things that you're looking for, right? And then you get these monsters like Google that completely change how this information is sourced, and everyone can get access to, billions, trillion, I don't even know what the number, it's not a number that any of us have off our head of web pages that exist on the internet that I can just quickly Google it and figure that out, right? Yeah. It's even a saying, you Google it, right?
Yeah.
So from that side, completely incredible. And then you get another company like Amazon to come along, and they turn, they really turned everything, like they're truly a fulfillment company, right? They're the ones that said, like, if you want stuff, we get you stuff fast, right? Yeah. Buy anything you want and you can have it super fast. Like, I just ordered some cables before I left for a conference last week, and it was like, if you order right now, you'll have these tomorrow morning, right? It was overnight shipping because they're stored so close in a warehouse, right? And so the network that these guys have set up to do those things is just incredible, right? Yeah. And so, like, you look at those major shifts and how it affects our behavior and brings all those things in is just really crazy. And then just the amount of, like, just simple things you can do just continues to amaze me, right? Like, you can configure your Tesla and then and I don't have one, but sounds like a great idea.
We don't either.
Yeah. But you can configure your Tesla and then put your down payment via Apple Pay on your phone. You haven't walked into a dealership, you haven't done anything, you haven't talked to a sales guy, everything else. You've built it all on your phone, and then you press Apple Pay, and boom, there's your down deposit on your vehicle, right? Like, it's just crazy. So you have all these shifts that are out there, and people look a lot towards those things, right? Like all right, Uber completely changed the cab game, right? And I give talks all the time to industries, and this kind of folds back to what we're talking to, is like, you have these things that are so disruptive, and you have industries, right? Taxi cab drivers weren't like, they thought, our industry is so locked, right? Like, nothing will ever come in and just completely upend us. Well, it did. And it was just tech driven, right? So it's like, a couple years ago, I gave a talk at basically the Jacuzzi, all of their, like, North American and European dealers, right? And here's guys like, they feel like they got it on lock because they're selling $5,000 to $15,000 bathtubs, right? Yeah. Hot tubs and everything else. And it's like, well, we could never be replaced with what we do because of, the things we ask, and then we drop it off and whatever else. And it's like, really? Because I can, like, go on my phone and, like, order a storage container, and somebody's just going to come drop it off tomorrow. And, like, so you don't think that can happen? And they'll include an electrician to wire it up, and then they'll be out of there and say, thanks. And you won't know any of them, won't know where they're from. Like, but hot tub's in and up and running, so you're all good. Yeah. So,
geez, thanks, Aaron. Didn't even think about that.
So
get out of here.
Yeah, I think the main point is, like, these disruptors will continue to exist, and the layer of what we can do online just keeps, like, getting thinner and thinner between what the barriers are, right? Like, we can buy stocks on our phone, we can do all our banking on it, right? Like, that gadget in our hand that once upon a time was all for mobile phone calls. Like, the thing I probably do the least is make phone calls on my phone. Right. Like, that's just a wild concept.
Yeah.
It's like,
pretty soon we'll never have to leave our houses.
Yeah.
What was
the year 25, Zager and Evans?
Make a living on our phone. We can have groceries delivered on our phone.
Are you an Apple or Android person?
I'm Apple, and have been for, like, a long time. So especially, like, in the phone where I actually have a drawer full of, like, all of the old I keep them.
It's like a museum, like an iPhone museum.
Oh, it totally is. If I would have, like, my first one, I think, was a 3. I didn't get the very first generation, but when you look at the size of that thing, and I was like, I was browsing the web on this thing? Yeah. Like, holy cow, right? Yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah. Which is, you said that kind of deflatedly, like, being in kind of like the tech industry, I would say, where maybe most of them go Android. You're like, I'm an Apple person too. Yeah. I like theirs. Do you find that, or is
no, not at all. I mean, it's really, there's nuances in the experiences, right? And I think that is kind of the thing. I think it's great. Like, having just one thing is a super bad idea. I mean, we're already at the point with a lot of these companies, Google, Amazon included, where it's like the monopoly and the stranglehold that they have. If there's something that even looks like a competitor, they buy it up, and it's part of their innovation, right? So it's like, we're either going to make this work for us, or they buy stuff and kill stuff off all the time, and it just helps defend the moat, of what they have that's out there. So no, I think having multiples of those things are great. From the tech side, it was hard for a while because they kind of have different code bases in how you build things. So like our app right now is a desktop app only. We're building our mobile apps. We're still a few weeks out. And once upon a time, you'd have to build each of those separate, right? So it wasn't like building one house that multiple families could live in. You built 2 houses, families separate, everything else. Now there's languages that you can use that are kind of the easy way, like cross-platform. So you can build once and deploy to both of those. You have to make a few different little concessions for like the user experiences and things like that. But once it used to be like very separated. And so some of that stuff's has gotten a lot better with it. But I just think for me, the part that I don't like sometimes, I have a blind spot to the Android world because I'm not on an Android device. And then there's certain things that Google does because Android is their product that is native, built right into the Android experience that's not into an iPhone. And we're seeing that now. I think I just saw announcements that coming up soon, I didn't get into the article to see how, but you'll be able to do FaceTime with Android devices now. So where FaceTime used to just be iPhone to iPhone, it'll be iPhone to any phone that's out there. So
I can't believe it's already been 25 minutes of just like
I know.
just boring tech talk. Are you still out there, people?
the nerdery, because I'm just fascinated with
it's
it.
wonderful.
But let's kind of try and make a shift to like your Buffalo experience here.
Yes.
Here, a lot of history with last name Weiche.
Yep.
Your dad, Kurt Weiche, KWC. They still have the Kurt Weiche Memorial Scholarship.
Yep.
Which your brother was a recipient of in years past. So just kind of maybe bring us back to history of the Weiche family. And
So my dad was an air traffic controller in 1980. Reagan fired all the controllers that are on strike, and Dad went back to night school and got into radio. And his he was working at a radio station in Hastings, and then Don Wollenhouse, who owned the KRWC back in the day, called him and offered him a job. And the Weiche family arrived in Buffalo, I think about 1982. It was right at the end of 4th grade. When we moved here. So from then on, he went on a handful of years, maybe 4 or 5 years later, he bought the radio station from Don. And that was great experience growing up, right? And I think that has a lot to do with my entrepreneurial background. Like my dad owned the radio station. My mom owned a custom framing and art gallery, Foxfire Gallery, which
I didn't know that.
she ran for 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
So like I always said, our dinner table or just the talk around the house a lot of times felt like kind of these little mini board meetings and whatever, right? Dad, in the radio station's heyday, 15 employees. Mom had 2 or 3. Both were involved in each other's businesses. And with the type of business Dad had, he was just so involved, right? Yeah. Like started the Home and Garden Show. Mom and Dad started the Sidewalk Art Festival, like just all kinds of community things they were either starting, involved in, supporting, emceeing. Dad emceed Buffalo Days for like a decade, just so many of those different things. So like the sense of community and things in Buffalo and growing up, and then you just know so many people who are also active in the community and business owners and those kind of things. It really was a really awesome and a really great experience. Loved that time, loved growing up that way. Buffalo was such a different community, in the 80s too, right? It was still a 5,000, 6,000, mostly felt like a farm community. Yeah. One stoplight.
Yeah, exactly.
You go to our neighboring communities like, they still think we're that.
Yeah.
Thanks, St. Michael.
Yeah.
You hear that all the time.
Yeah. Well, when the cities come out, right, I just had a buddy, his daughter plays volleyball for Edina, and they're playing here earlier this week, right? And when you come out from the cities, depending upon which way you come out and where you turn, you can skip all of civilization, right?
Yeah,
and then you go out to a school that's still surrounded by fields, right? So they feel like there's plenty of them that have no idea, right? Like,
I've actually thought about that a lot.
Yeah, you'll talk to people at like a youth tournament, like, where can you even eat lunch in this town? like just go that way. You'll hit Culver's and Taco John's.
Yeah, but you have to kill it yourself.
There's a bow by the door when you leave. Just grab that
and put it back, please.
That's talking to anybody in the lake conference of like, we have to go all the way to Buffalo.
Yeah.
Like all these high schools are 10 minutes from each other.
Yep.
But absolutely.
So I think the memory of your dad that I have, being so closely associated with Buffalo wrestling, is him and Adiotness
Yep.
On the radio in Buffalo's wrestling heyday.
Yep.
And that's that gym at the middle school.
Yep.
Packed with people, not just mom and dad.
Yep.
Like a legit student section. That
Yes.
place was rocking.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was awesome.
Well, we go all to the away matches too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of my biggest memories, so that would have been probably the winter of 90, because the 91 class was really the
took third.
stellar class.
Yeah.
And it was at Totino Grace. And Grace was really strong in the lower weights, and they were up ahead of us. And then we got to where, Jason Sherber kicked in.
Jason Burr.
Yeah. Well, Burr was down lower, right? Like
Oh, yeah,
135. So
he was
Sherber
lower.
was up
Yep.
a little higher. But triplet, Sherber,
Tom Olson.
Ordorf, Tommy Olson, and things like that. And we went from being down by 15, 20, which felt really uncomfortable to Tino Grace, and just steamrolled it. And it was first and second period pins, and the gym was just erupting, right? And it felt like we had 1,000 people there
Right.
at a high school wrestling match on the road, right?
Yeah.
It was so cool. And Dad, he wrestled in, he was a terrible wrestler, but wrestled in high school, loved the sport, and it was such a great reconnection for
Right.
him. And to be part of it is it, built into those, couple of years of a, 4th, 5th place finish and a 3rd place finish, and really so close, right? If things didn't unfold the way they did in the
Right.
Apple Valley match, we would have been right there in the championship.
Dusty Ordorf can
Yep.
not get knocked out.
Yep. So you have those, or even Jared Mutter not having to wrestle. You go against Carl Jones, who
Right.
was pretty much a nationally ranked heavy. He was like a V1 of Gable Stevenson back
exactly.
in the day. So
Right.
it's that was just great to be around. And he went everywhere for it, right? It was all right, if there's a match in Worthington, he's going to Worthington, right? And I would tag along all the time.
Yeah.
And he just loved it. And man, you want to talk about, we're filibustering time and whatever else. But if you got Jerry Bakke and Kurt Weiche together and whatever else, okay, a million topics and a million minutes later, the conversation, I don't even know how it got wrapped up, but it did get wrapped up finally.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And, sadly, they might be having a conversation right now.
I
with the
would
passing
hope
of
so.
Jerry Bakke
I would
and
really hope so.
catching up on the last couple decades.
Yep.
And so any particular Jerry Bakke conversations that's not conversations, but memories or conversations that stand out.
Yeah. As we were talking before we hit record, it was just a couple years ago where I ran into Bach at a Twins game and started talking to him, and I was with my wife, and I just told Marcy, go get food and something else, because this is going to be a bit, right? Because you just always wanted to hear what Bach had to say.
Yeah.
But the beauty, he was one of those people, and I like to think that, my dad was the same way, where whoever they were talking to felt like $1 million, right? They had such a great way of becoming interested in you and pulling the best out of you, and then inserting the needs you had, whether it was motivation or just feeling cared for, or what you're doing was great. That's the biggest, thing I look at with people like that. And that, watching that outpouring of all that on the local Facebook groups and everything else really brought me back. That's one thing. It's man, I would have loved to have social media around when my dad passed in 1999.
Oh.
So, nothing like that. It was we had the funeral service that overflowed out into the parking lot at Zion Lutheran Church, which isn't a small sanctuary by any means. And it was the most packed thing ever, right? And it was just an amazing experience. And it was kind of one of those I hope he's seeing all of the impact and people flying in from all walks of life that he had dealt with over the years.
Right.
And then when you see, with Jerry passing, and you just see all the comments from the wrestlers he coached to the kids that he taught, the other sports that he was involved with, it just, the impact was so far and so wide, right? And just tons of amazing stuff, right? Just what an inspiration, right? What a great dude. I seriously, on multiple ones, I was just he was an amazing human. So privileged to have known the guy and be part of the way he thought, the way he acted, the way he treated other people. And especially in today's age, it's very different than how a lot of people carry and conduct themselves. So,
and you kind of bring it to my attention too, that it wasn't just his former athletes.
Not at all.
It was kids that took a very different path in life. That were equally impacted. Not because they were in the wrestling room, or not because, he was able to get them from, cornball conference champ to state entry. You know, it wasn't that. It was, he believed in me.
Yeah.
You know, he provided something that nobody else could.
Yeah. And from a very diverse group too, right? It's like one thing when you have people who are already really great students saying like, oh, he was a great teacher and whatever else.
Yeah.
But you definitely have people commenting that maybe disliked every other class, but not Mr. Baki's, right? Because you didn't even have to like the subject matter, but the man operated with passion, right? All the time, and transparent to who he was, shared his opinion that even if you didn't agree with his opinion, you were willing to listen to it, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where I look at that's like, all right, such a coverall, right?
Yeah.
Like, I kind of think you really maybe had to be an a-hole yourself to be like, yeah, I don't care for the guy, right? It was just like, that's probably on you.
Yeah.
That's not on Jerry.
Right.
So.
That's
Yeah.
definitely,
Tyler, what about you? I know you shared, I think, I like your national wrestling tournament story. I don't know.
Oh,
Not to
yeah.
tell you, you have to tell a story. But
No, it's again, I was privileged to be in his class right at the end of wrestling season, kind of at that part where I could start eating again.
Yep.
And then it's like, Reese, what are you doing? You're getting fat. You know, like, all right, thanks, Bach. It's like, so end up, because if you were first or second in state, you got to go to the national tournament.
Yep.
And I was really bad in 7th grade, but I wrestled varsity, lost a whole bunch of matches.
Yep.
But I also held the record for most wins in Buffalo history.
Yep.
And he goes, Reese, if you can find, I'm trying to do Baki's voice,
Yeah.
but
don't even try.
yeah.
You gotta get some wine to it. It's got a pitch.
So you're wrestling state champs and runners up, you know, all across the country. He said, if you can find somebody with more wins and more losses than you, I'll give you $100 for graduation. Yeah. And I was 118 and 79, which is not a great record by any means. But there's a kid who's like 125 and 90. And I said, Bach, here it is. Here it is. And he came to my grad party and he got $100. And it was great. But it was that was really fun of just hearing that door that you gotta go. I mean that everybody knows what that means, and it means different for everybody else. You gotta go. Yeah. And that was maybe that highlight of the story that I remember most of. If you can find somebody that won more than you but lost more than you too, because that's kind of a special thing. And he definitely made me feel special about that.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So, but
one of a kind.
No doubt.
Definitely one of a kind.
Absolutely.
No doubt. So hopefully we can get back to having a Kurt Weiche scholarship memorial event.
The event, right?
You know, what is that? Is that just pumping money into the fund to keep it strong and going?
Yep. Yeah, we do a night where we basically, it's moonlight bowling, get a group of friends together, get on a lane, and just have a good time and hang out. It's really good for my brother and I too, just because the event will mix in so many different facets of our lives, right? It'll be people we work with, people we grew up with and graduated with, people that we're friends with now because of our kids. So it's just this really giant mix. And to me, the core of that, just really reminds me of my dad, because he didn't have just one type of friend or whatever else. It was a very diverse group. And to see that across all those walks of life, that's the one thing where I always walk away from okay, that's really cool. Right. And there's a ton of these people that, never even knew my dad or anything else. They're friends of ours and whatever else, but they're helping contribute to that legacy and those things. So it's a lot of fun when, we've been on a couple year break. Hopefully, we'll be able to get back to it. I'm very tired the next morning.
Yeah. Very sleepy.
And it's not from the bowling.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. We could go all day.
We could go all day. I don't think this will maybe be your last time on the Buffalo Community Podcast, but we're coming up more than 30 minutes, and that's usually people's attention span. And
I'll be surprised if anybody's. I think you guys should put a Easter egg contest at the end of this, and you're guaranteed not to give it away, right?
Absolutely.
$1 million giveaway is right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nobody ever wins, right? You're episode 78, we gave away $1 million. None of you guys stuck around.
Yeah, we just had that. We had to burn it.
Yeah. We can't hang on to all that cash.
Right.
Yeah. That's funny. Aaron, thanks for coming in. It's
much.
been a great pleasure learning a little bit more about you and all of our 250,000 listeners.
All right. Appreciate the opportunity.
For the Buffalo Community Podcast, I'm Tyler Reiss.
I'm Mark Benzer.
I'm Aaron Weiche.
I feel like it goes.